In the last section, we got our first component to show up on the screen of our device. So I'm using iOS on Mac right here, so I'm using the iPhone simulator. If you're on Windows and you're developing for Android, you'll see this in the Android simulator. And as you can see, you could kind of see that we got some text right there, but gee whiz, does it look pretty ugly. At least, though, we got some content to show up on the screen of our device, and we've got a better idea of what the import tags are, what a component is, and how we actually render it to the screen of our device. So we will fix this up in just a second, but before we do, let's talk a little bit about the first application that we're going to be building, and then we can come back and start to improve how this thing looks right here. So let's open up a mock-up of this first application that we'll be making. So this is the mock-up of our app. The app's purpose is going to be to display the user with a number of different music records that they can purchase. Like, when I say records, I mean like actual CDs. At the very top of the app will be a header that simply says albums, which is the name of our application. Then below the header will be our list of albums. Right here, I'm only showing a single one, but we should have support for showing many albums that the user can scroll through. Each album will be represented by this kind of big rectangle right here, which we'll refer to as a card. On the header of the card should be a icon of the artist, so like the singer or whoever created the record. It should display the album's name, the artist's name, all inside the header. Then in the body of the card, which is this big X right here, this represents the album image, so like the actual album artwork. It should be a nice, very large image right in the center of the card. Finally, at the very bottom of the card should be a button that says Buy Now. And whenever a user clicks this, we should direct the user over to a page where they can purchase the album. So we're not going to be building that actual purchase page. We're just going to kick the user over to an Amazon.com page inside their browser on the device where they can buy that album if they want to. So again, we're going to have many different cards. Like, and the card is this whole unit right here is what I'm trying to say. And we'll have one unit or one card for each album that we've retrieved or fetched. Okay, so this is basically the application that we're building. It's going to be our first one, and we're going to focus a lot on just the basics of React and how we use React Native to build an application like this. At the start of each app that we build, we're also going to spend some amount of time to plan out exactly how we're going to tackle that project. In particular, we're going to decide what different types of components we want to make. As a reminder, a component is a function that returns some amount of JSX. And JSX is what tells React Native what content we want to show on the screen. Whenever we build a React application, we attempt to make components that are generally as reusable as possible, so we can write one component and then use it in several different locations throughout our app. It's all about reuse of code. For this application, we're going to make several different components to build this application. Here's kind of a diagram of all the different components and what they might be called. We might make one component called the header component that will just sit at the very top of our application. Then, to represent a single album, we might make a card component. So a card component has many card sections inside of it. And each card section will have some amount of content. So the one at the very top will be the actual album, artist image with the name of the artist and the album name. And then another card section that shows the image. And then another card section that shows the Buy Now button. In addition, we might even make another component just to represent the Buy Now button. We'll talk more about all the different considerations of when we want to make a reusable component versus when we want to make like a very kind of one-off or custom component as we work throughout this application. So planning out our components ahead of time like this just makes it easier later on to have a very solid idea of kind of the different parts of the application that we need to focus on when we're building it. It just makes it easier to build the application when we know what we want to make ahead of time. Okay, so honestly, this is a pretty ambitious app to start off with, but I'm confident that we're going to be able to work through it and learn just a ton about React Native along the way. So let's get started with it in the next section.